I'll hand over to do some introductions. Start with Chris as my co-moderator.
Yeah, there's a lot of moderators on this panel. My name's Chris Webb. I head up the account management team for DealCloud. I've been with the business for about 4 years. I've been in the private markets technology space for about 15 years, which is difficult for me to say. In addition to sort of my day job, I also advise fintech startups like Lemon Edge, Deals Plus, Mosaic. So, that's me.
Good evening. Peter Tucker. I'm MD of IT at IK Partners. Been at IK for about 12 years now, running the IT service. Been DealCloud and Holland Mountain customer for many years now, and really just getting involved in any part of IT I can, and especially with the CRM, it's a big project for us at the moment.
I'm Ruth Eagle. I lead the origination team at CBPE Capital. We are a UK mid-market focused investor. I've been at CBPE for 3 years, and I spent 5 years at ECI Partners in the origination team before that. In my role, I sort of wear a few different hats. So I'm primarily responsible for making sure that we are sourcing the right deals, meeting the right companies sort of early and ahead of a process or ahead of sort of any investment. But part of my role, one that takes up an increasing amount of my time, is making sure that we are using the right technology, that we have sort of the right systems and processes in place. We've been using DealCloud as our CRM for several years. We've recently just finished sort of our own technology build in-house to build ourselves a deal origination platform as well. So kind of, has looked at various different systems over the past year.
Great, thanks all. Just logistically, we'll probably plan to speak for around 45 minutes or so, and then let everyone return to the drinks area. So first question, we'll start with a big one. Digital transformation obviously relies on people, process, and technology. I think in recent years, data has made its way into that. But what is the right formula between the three for success in implementing and getting value from a CRM system? Who'd like to start?
Quite happy to start. It's always people. It's got to be always people. Technology is, I think, by far the third part of it. Technology falls into place once you have the people and processes in place. And getting the people in place, and it's a struggle I've got at the moment, trying to get people in place at a senior enough level to make these changes, to make these things happen, and to get the buy-in at the main partner level. Every deal team we have, I don't know, probably about 7 or 8 deal teams, and they all got their certain ways of working, certain ways of storing data, certain ways of entering data. And we're trying to standardize this. And this is where we struggle. It's where the change is happening, is to make sure that we have a single view throughout the company, make sure the people are aligned with what we're trying to do. And once you have that, then you bring the processes on board, make sure the processes are aligned across the business. And then the technology will follow. The technology should never lead it. It should always be following it.
Yeah, and look, I'd agree on that front. We at CBP, we've been using our CRM system for years, and it was implemented actually before I joined. Actually, we definitely weren't using it to its full capacity before I joined the firm, and there are a couple of reasons. A couple of reasons for that. Mainly, sort of the people weren't necessarily as bought into using it as they should be, and I think one thing that's absolutely crucial is having, or something that's really been crucial for us in terms of getting sort of proper usage and proper adoption, is having someone on the deal team who is essentially a product owner, or sort of take ownership for using the system and sort of using it to its full potential. So, one of the things I did when I joined is we re-implemented DealCloud, and we sort of implemented it to work how we needed it to work, not just to kind of try and force people to use a system which kind of didn't actually fit in with their processes on a day-to-day basis. But really the key thing was having someone who said, right, I'm going to pick this up, I'm going to own this, and I'm going to make sure that it is as tailored as possible to what we need. And then sort of encourage and force people to use it in a way. We've seen sort of the adoption and the amount of data that we're capturing absolutely, dramatically increase. And it all comes back to that sort of ownership point. You have to have someone or a group of people that care about the outputs, that care about sort of the system, and that really make sure it's sort of being adopted and used properly. And that really sort of having that deal side owner has been really transformational in terms of how we use the system.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you can see in companies like yourself who've had that buy-in and actually have the dedicated resources to CRM. And I'm looking at Sharon in the front row as well, and the dedicated resources they have at HG. And that makes such a difference to how it's implemented. And I think it's the change of mindset. I mean, CRM, remember, it used to be years ago, a customer relationship manager, and that's all it was putting in telephone numbers, addresses, email addresses, and, well, I talk to this person. It's so much more now. And it's getting the senior guys and the deal teams to actually realize how much it's changed and what is actually possible with these systems. And that's what we're trying to do. And we have to work with partners. So with Intapp, we work with Holland Mountain, just to try and get us to help me as well for a start. And then the wider business understand what is possible with the data that we have available to us.
I think that's a really, really good point. And actually something that we sort of changed when we sort of re-implemented 3 years ago, or sort of did a bit of an overhaul, was we really wanted to show people why on earth are they using the system and actually kind of give them some value out of it. So kind of take the data that you're inputting and actually show them how it is useful, rather than making your CRM system a bottomless pit where you input data but you don't get anything out of it. So we sort of fundamentally, we rejigged our internal processes to run around our CRM data. So kind of all of our pipeline catch-ups are powered now by our CRM system. All of the sort of the quarterly data that we're monitoring in terms of our market, who's doing deals, kind of did we see the deals, our market coverage, all of that is powered by our CRM system now. And I think whereas previously people often felt that, they were putting information in and not really getting much back, just using the data and kind of showing them how it's useful to them has been really, really powerful. And actually things that people engage with the system rather than getting annoyed at the fact that you have to use the system.
Yeah. One of the things we've seen with some successful rollouts over the past few years, there was a very large Swiss asset manager, and they effectively created like a 90-second video. So one of the CEOs came in and sort of said, this is what we're talking about. The head of IR came in and said, this is like where we're trying to get to as a business from an assets under management perspective. Someone came in, like the CTO or one of the head of the managing directors of the deal team came in and said, like, these are the challenges we're facing today. This is the process we went through. This is what we landed on. And this is ultimately what it's going to mean for our business and what it means for you. So that has been shown at the beginning of every single conversation that they've had going forward. So any training, then sort of rollouts, anything where it just aligns the organization around the why, right? Why are we doing this? Because you take time poor people and you tell them, here's a new project you have to go do.
Yep.
While they're trying to do deals or they're trying to raise capital, the chances of getting their attention is very, very, very slim. Yeah. But if you kind of start with the why, lead with that, and it comes from such a senior place where it's like, this fits with the vision of our business, you really can start to give people the attention.
It's quite a good litmus test as well. If you've got a CRM system and you want to understand how the business feels about it, go around and ask different people, different personas, why do we have that CRM system? Yeah. In our experience, if things aren't working very well, you get a completely different answer to that question from different people consistently.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that time poor point is really important. So one of the things we really focused on was making sure that the data entry was as painless as possible. So, different firms work in different ways. Some firms have like a dedicated data entry team. That's great. We don't. So we're a small firm. So kind of everybody is responsible for entering their own data. Which meant that you're kind of asking people, as you say, you are trying to do deals, they're kind of time poor, they're sitting on portfolio company boards, they don't have a lot of time for this type of thing. We're asking them to input their own data. So the way that we approached it was making it as easy and quick as possible to enter that data. So that essentially kind of the barrier to adding things into the CRM was removed. So we drastically cut the number of fields that you had to add when you're entering a new deal or kind of saying we're adding different objects. And we just made it so that we had sort of the key information, and then we can sort of augment it and add stuff as we go along. But as long as we're capturing sort of the basic and most important bits, that was sort of how we approached it, and actually kind of reducing the number of mandatory fields has really, really helped us, and has really increased adoption, and everybody is now, using it.
Yeah. If it's a situation where if I can do it in Excel in 30 seconds, or I can do it in my CRM system in 14 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to Excel.
Yeah.
Right. That's just human nature. Yeah. So I think when we originally landed on these shores with the business 7-8 years ago, we were kind of like, what do you want? We'll boil the ocean. We'll make whatever happen. And now I think we've gotten a lot more disciplined, and now we're a lot better to say, you don't need all that.
Yes.
That's phase 2. That's phase 3. Like, what are the absolute key things you need? Because when dealing with change and getting people to change their behaviors, if it's too difficult for them, you're asking too much of them, the chances of them actually delivering upon that is very, very small. Mm-hmm. So if you can make it simple for them, you give them the why, you make it really simple. And then to your point before about having that, investment team or the IR team owner, someone who's not on the tech side. The tech side needs a partner.
Yeah.
Right? There was an example with a fund here based in London where, there was a guy doing very, very well in his career, definitely partner track director at the time. He took on this process, and that was like a feather in his cap when he went up to partner, to be able to say, like, I helped transform the DNA of our firm. We're now a data-driven firm. We now have this information, this intelligence that we didn't have before. And he was able to use that as a reason, like, why he should be partner. And that was part of like the whole ascension, basically.
I think in summary, people is the hardest part of the forming of the CRM success.
If you understand the people, you understand then their processes, what their troubles are, what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve, the processes fall into place fairly easily. And once you have those two, the technology falls into place fairly easily as well.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that story of keeping things simple, because I think a lot of the grand ideas that we often see kind of day one on implementation are super valid and logical. But in reality, the biggest risk to success is the adoption of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And you can build up to that over time. But start simple, make sure there is a use case for all of those things that you're asking people to do from an input or a data processing perspective, which often comes back to reconciling that with the outputs that you're using them in, right? And then build up to those things over time, which you have to do.
Yeah. Fair enough. So just before we move on to our next section, are there any questions from the audience?
It's really the main partners at the moment trying to persuade them, because we're making money. We're a successful company. Why would you change what you're trying to do? And that's the biggest barrier I've got to trying to change. And they just, whatever you're doing, but it's trying to get them to understand the future, data-driven future. And that's what we're looking at. And I think that's the biggest challenge at the moment, talking to the CEO and trying to get him to really understand why we're trying to do this. And I'm going nowhere until he says, our Monday morning report, I want that delivered to Ideal Cloud. Yeah, I'm a struggle. And I'm chipping away. It's a slow process. It's slowly chipping little bits and pieces, proving why data is important, proving why structured data, that everyone talks about AI. And I said, well, you can have these AI systems, but we need some structured data behind it. And we're not going to do that unless you get, so trying to lead them on. So that, as soon as they get past in, then but again, real life.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we had to overcome, and the big challenge, was sort of the perception that a CRM system was an extra piece of work, and that actually it was an additional thing that they had to do, which wasn't particularly valuable. And I think the way that we've done that, as I said, is sort of just by demonstrating what value this data can provide to them, and by making it as easy as entering stuff on an Excel. It's by basically making things as easy as possible, and by showing them the why they're doing it, and sort of the why of it all. And that was sort of the major challenge, was sort of, kind of breaking those perceptions that, we've used Dynamics back in the past. It was really annoying. And we've used this type of system and it was, didn't work and it was clunky. It's sort of breaking those old perceptions that old CRM systems are really irritating to use, whereas actually if you make it easy and quick, people will use it. But that was sort of one of the challenges.
So actually, that's a good point. Back to the historic CRM systems. Historically, I think we used interaction prior to this, and it was clunky and didn't do a lot really. Yeah. So, and it's getting the understanding of what is possible with a modern CRM system, and then what is possible beyond what the modern CRM system. So, if we have the data in CRM, what else can it deliver? What reports can it deliver? What else can you link it to? And there are a lot of ability to link data sets together. It's just so new and different to what it was even 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah. It's so massive. So that's also trying to get them to understand that.
Yeah. I think the other thing as well, obviously, there's a lot of kind of operational or technology focused people in the room, and you need to find your allies in the business. It's not impossible without them. Yeah. Ruth here came in immediately as an ally, I guess, to CBPE, right? But if you're trying to lead technology change and the senior members of the organization in the business side aren't supporting it, then you can only ever get so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky that everybody at CBP was massively bought into sort of making sure that we had the right technology and we were using it properly. It was just our sort of perception and time poor piece that we had to sort of adapt the system to make sure it was working for them. And once we'd done that, kind of, adoption went good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the implementation, sort of the increased adoption that we've had has just made us so much more joined up. everybody can see that, every single deal or every single company that we look at or every single thing we come across is now logged on the system. Everybody can see exactly what we think about the business. How far did it get in the pipeline? Why do we like it? Why do we not like it? And it just means that sort of everybody is singing off the same hymn sheet. And so in terms of our interactions with advisors, corporate finance advisors or, banks, having sort of one source of truth, in terms of everything that we've looked at and exactly what we think about things has been really transformational. So you're never having that situation where you'll talk to one partner and they say, oh yeah, I really like this deal. And then you'll talk to another, they go, no, we'll never touch that in a million years. So it's that single source of truth point has been absolutely invaluable for us. And, kind of just knowing exactly, what we think about things, when did we add them? Did we meet them? What are the notes from that? It really just kind of means that everybody is pulling in the same direction and is really helpful.
So from our point of view, it's been the IR team. The IR team have really taken on Deal Cloud in a big way. So we've had it, about 4 years, something like that, 4 or 5. And they've really gone in and used dispatch as well. I think we're quite heavy into the dispatching thing still. And that's really where it's been very successful. And I haven't had to do much work with it. We literally pointed them at it and off they've gone. And they've really self-driven this one. So that's been quite an easy one. The quick one, the IR team and the dispatcher wasn't hard.
So yeah, I was going to mention this earlier, so it's relevant now. Yeah. There is a difference when we talk generally, but there is a difference between IR teams and deal teams and dealing with these problems as well. I think in reality, in my experience, IR teams to see the problem that it's solving for them a lot more easily. And a lot of the time the value is directly to the people using the system. Whereas deal teams, sometimes the people inputting the data aren't getting the most value from it. It's the institution or people that manage it.
I've gone around the business or various sites in our Stockholm office chatting to one of the deal directors saying, we need to be using Deal Cloud. So what does it do for me? He just was not interested in putting data. I've got my spreadsheet. I've got my nice little spreadsheet. I've been using this for years. It works. Why would I put it in Deal Cloud?
Yeah.
I sort of ended the conversation at that point because I wasn't going very far.
That's not an ally.
No, let's move on to someone else. But yeah, that is a lot of the thoughts people have.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final questions?
Good question.
I think initially, I sit on the AI Castle, and we spent about a year ago. We put it together. We were quite worried that we were quite far behind lots of people and thinking, we really should catch up. But we went through and talked to all our peers, looked at all the options, and firstly, we found we're not that far behind with everyone. And also the thoughts about AI and what people expect from it is so different to reality. I think we tested Copilot, so Microsoft Copilot. I gave it to all our Amsterdam office and said, off you go. I came back a couple of months later, gave them all the things, and they said, what do you want? And yes, it doesn't do much. I think that the expectation was they can say, doing a presentation based on this, and it will produce this wonderful presentation that marketing will be very happy with and how it all looked. Reality so far away from that. And I think that's the expectations are sort of damping down a bit to what actually is possible with AIs. I think where it's becoming useful, ChatGPT we use, we got around quite a while, we use that. So just using that for text conversations and just format. It's the start of a conversation. It's the start of a paper or an email or something like that to get you going. That's very useful. But we started to look at building, say, a chatbot to look at a document set. So if there's a fund information, do a quick check. We did a few months' work, looked at it. To be honest, cost us a lot of money and didn't do a lot. It sort of worked, but it wasn't great. And now we're looking, I think, where AI, for our point of view, unless you're looking at the bigger models, the big things, will just generally fade into the background. It will be part of, as with Deal Cloud, is part of Deal Cloud. We don't use SharePoint, we use Ignite. So it's becoming part of Ignite's back end of just the AI kit. So that's what I think of AI. Yes, there are bigger things with our portfolio companies. There's lots of opportunities to AI, and I know they're making some great strides with that. But in terms for us, not so much, because it's so much the key of the human element to this, and that's the important bit. It's the human element to the deals, to understanding it that makes a difference. It's the productivity that where it's going to help us out.
I think a lot of funds are still working out what is actually a good use case for AI, because you can get really excited about using AI in various different ways, but actually kind of what is fundamentally going to change our day to day. I think a lot of funds and sort of a lot of people in our industry are still relatively early on in the thinking on that. I mean, we use Copilot. It's been really quick, really good in terms of, speeding up profiling businesses and kind of, using generative AI to kind of write descriptions of things. And that's great. But, I think that we're still working out where's the best application for this, and, where are you actually going to get sort of the most use out of it, really.
I think it's almost less AI that's changing behavior. I think it's more like apps on your phone, challenger banks. It's the day-to-day tech that we use from a consumer perspective. People are expecting that in enterprise application.
Yeah.
This concept of, like user acceptance testing for an upgrade. Like, no, I just hit it and it just updates and then it's there. Like, what are we doing here? I think if anything, that's the thing that I think is changing people's behavior, and especially people who are a little on the younger side, haven't dealt with like legacy systems or on-prem systems or things like that. Then their expectation is just, like, I hit the button and it refreshes and we're done, right?
I think also it's the ability for people who are non-technical people to actually understand what AI is and what the systems are. It's not this magical intelligence. It may be a bit not the wrong description. I would call it Google Plus. And that sort of sets their expectations for what's possible. It's not going to create some new stuff. It can only work on what it's given, the model that's there. And once you get that in their mind, go, oh, okay. So, and that's how I try to sell it.
I've got one specific example of that. Contact migrations for CRM implementations are always horrible, partly because you rely on the business to help you determine which are personal, which is their doctor, which is their friend from university, etc. We're seeing more and more that kind of taking Outlook PST files from people's desktops and moving them into a consolidation staging environment, then into a cleansing process, into a system is kind of dying. And we're using technology to look at emails, take company structured objects, associate contacts that people email the most to those objects, and use that to push data into the system. It's a really good example of how some of the functionality is available in modern CRM systems. It is really removing some of that pain. I've only probably 10% of the time I've seen a contact migration like that go well in the old model. In the new model is a lot more streamlined, and your chance of success is significantly higher.
And the definition of insanity is, do the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So we've done 2,000 migrations, and we've had to get really smart about how we approach it. So it's much more on the back end. It's much more focused on, getting scripts and logic and trying to get away from the manual cleansing process. Because again, time poor people, if you go and say, here's a list of 1,700 contacts, could you please let me know which one you're going to keep? So the likelihood of getting a response is pretty slim not at. And I'm conscious of time. And I want to make sure that you continue to kind of move the conversation forward, because eventually people will lose the will to live. So I just want to talk a little bit about incentivization, and we've touched upon this a little bit. I just want to kind of hone in a little bit. So obviously you have different personas, you need different incentives. You have different ways to incentivize people. There's the carrot, there's the stick. What have we seen that sort of works? Where have we maybe fallen down in the past, where it didn't work so well? Let's kind of dig into the incentivization for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's worked really well for us is just structuring all of our internal catch-ups around our CRM data. So every time we're having a sector catch-up, if it's not on the CRM, we don't talk about it. Kind of making sure, and that means that everybody wants to show that they are, they're originating, they are productive, they've got stuff on the system, and they want to talk about their deals. We've also shown that, kind of having that track record of, you reached out to the business first, you found out about it, kind of being able to evidence exactly where did the deal come from, how did we get it to this point, and kind of exactly who was involved. That's also been really powerful. Everybody wants to sort of be attached to those deals. So from a sort of an incentive point, people see that actually, if I'm adding things to the system, it's being spoken about, it's being brought up at sort of our company-wide meeting each week. So actually there's a real incentive for people to want to add their figures onto there. We've also had, a lot of senior buy-in as well. So our managing partners and sort of our partners have all really focused on making sure that everybody throughout the business knows this is part of their job. They have to add the data. And, kind of there's been that senior pressure from the top as well. So the kind of a combination of both has really worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have much to add to that because, to be honest, I'm struggling with the incentives at the moment to try and get stuff. But lots of good ideas, so that's really handy. But yeah, I mean, we're in a place at the moment trying to find out what is the best way for IK to do this, and I need to get past where we are at the moment, and then we work on that. Anyway, thank you for doing this.
I think the first step is actually just thinking about incentivization from the point of view of each different person using the system. And the answer to that question is different for each individual that's using the system. Yeah. It's different from a PA to a junior deal team member to a VP to a senior deal team member. Again, different on the IR side as well. I think the kind of leveraging the carrot versus the stick, I think there's a bit of carrot stick for everyone, to be honest. But a lot of the time I hear, if we make it useful for people, then they will use it, which I think is a massive oversimplification of the problem. And in reality, lots of people will be kind of spending time utilizing a CRM system, doing things that don't necessarily benefit them, but benefit someone else or benefit the institution as a whole. And it kind of comes back to the conversation earlier about the why. If they don't understand why they are doing that, then they're not going to know why you're holding a stick above their head, I guess.
Was a client of ours, an investment bank, one of the big fours, their corporate finance team. They actually withheld portions of people's bonus if they did not leverage the system. That
it works.
That's was a pretty big stick.
Yeah.
And it came down from the head of that entire unit and said, "This is how it's going to be. This is what we're doing." It worked extremely well, but I mean that requires a level of senior buy-in and an amount of power to say, like, I don't care who I piss off, and like, this is what we're doing, and we're all going to get on board. So that was a fairly aggressive flex.
Yeah.
Just not related to the incentives, but I think what we just said about getting the traction, making it easy for people, is they also persuading the senior manager to put the proper resources behind it. They can't expect, like our assistants, to be inputting data to doing that. Again, sorry, Cheryl, you just sat there in front of my eye line. So, but HG Capital, it's, you've got a proper team managing it and putting it back. We don't have that. And I think there's a resistance from the senior leaders to actually, why do we need to spend more money on more people to do this? You do. I mean, this is it. You can't just expect existing people, the existing sort of headcount to do this type of work. If you want this properly arranged system with data that's good, you need to put some resources behind it.
I think early on, we had a couple of sort of light bulb moments for some people in our team, which really showed them, oh, wow, yeah, this is really powerful. Examples are sort of, we'd met a business maybe 2 or 3 years ago, hadn't yet added to the system because it was before we were sort of using the system in the way that we are today. This business then came up on a sort of a deep dive project we were doing, and then people go, oh, yeah, actually, we did meet them 2 years ago. And we said we'd follow up in 2 years, and it's about 2 years now. And actually, it just little things like that which show that, oh, actually, this is really useful to me. And sort of capitalizing on those light bulb moments has been really helpful.
Yeah.
Good.
Any questions from anyone on incentivization, or I guess some of the other related topics from kind of question 1, sponsorship, etc.? I think it kind of comes back to what we were saying earlier about it depends on the position that you're in. I think the person persuading that person to give you their time to help you implement a system or to help champion it on an ongoing basis should be partly kind of operational technology staff, but largely business team members and ideally their line manager in the business. And that person then needs to understand why it's important, kind of convey the same messaging that your technology leaders will be conveying as well. And ultimately, to what Chris was saying earlier, I've seen examples of kind of monetary incentivization working quite well as well, but both during an implementation and post-implementation, to be honest. When you've got people in organizations where they are remunerated based on kind of doing deals, to what Chris said earlier, it's hard to draw their time away from that. They are ultimately incentivized to not give you the time, right? Just simply. So I guess kind of giving a quick pro quo to the time that you're asking for ultimately does work.
So also needs to come to the very top. I know if I went to some of our deal teams and said, this is what I'm trying to do, I'd get nowhere. If I went to their director in charge, I'd get nowhere. If I go to the partner in terms of that deal, you get nowhere because they're just concentrating on their deal and they're there. So I'd have to go to the CEO and go, this is what you need company-wide. This is what we need to do. and it just trickles down from there. That's the only way I think they do it.
Okay. Yeah. Having your deal team or your IR team sponsor is key. I think seeing, I mean, it's going to sound bad when I say this, but I think it's altruism and narcissism are two fairly powerful emotions that you can kind of play on. The altruism is people do want to help the business. They want to grow. They want to increase the AUM. They want to increase the prestige of the business. But then if you can make it so that it's their thing, right? And again, to the point I mentioned earlier, there was a director, very well respected in the business, had a bit of a tech slant. It was kind of, he took it on and was able to leverage that from a career progression perspective. So if you can find someone with a bit of a tech slant, who's quite ambitious, who's excited, who really wants to achieve, then kind of latching on to that person and helping them understand the benefits of why doing this would actually be really good for them. You got the why from a corporate level. You understand the big picture of like why we're doing this. But then if you go a little bit more, that's strategic, a little bit more tactically of like that specific person of, if you do this and you help me here, you'll be able to leverage this as like, this is your thing. And once we're successful and we change the DNA of this business, like you're going to get the gold star. So let's do this, right?
I think it's also important to remember as well that every firm is different. So what works for my firm, we're 30 people, is not what will work for your firm. You're considerably larger. So kind of just working out what culture do you have at your firm, what's going to work? Is it sort of the carrot? Is it the stick? Kind of what do people need to see, which is going to make the system work for them? And that is bespoke to each different firm. So sort of having somebody that understands the culture of the business, how your internal processes work, I think that's key because you have to sort of adapt it for each different business.
Maybe. Any other questions on that topic? Yeah.
Why is it hard? Are people manually entering in company name, the website, the description, the revenue, the EBITDA figures?
So on the company days, we have the organizations or based on your sort.
Right.
Let's feel a something that's put a primary or second being out that they've become a lot of the sector. And it's super was something in for a while fortunately. So often I feel some of that I feel like 30 minutes to put me to not shake off that worry, but the some of it is. And then I get some of the PA because they often do actually their own all the sectors is primaries at secondaries. And then it almost face along the top and then that's go back and forth, coordination and it's offside.
So we're getting some kind of intrinsic data governance topics because with all the resource in the world, the data owner is still the data owner. It's the person who is on the deal that knows that information, right? I do think kind of executive and team PAs are really important to a healthy working system, especially when you think about synchronizing meetings. I know partners that want to look at like a forward-looking calendar when they log into Deal Cloud. The notes might not be in there yet, but those meetings have gone in because the PAs know to sync them every time they go into the system. But they can't become the data owner for data that they don't own. And so ultimately, I think it comes back to some of the things we were saying earlier about the data owners need to know why that data is important. The sponsors need to enforce that behavior because it's important. If anything they're being asked to do isn't important, then you need to ask why are they doing it and potentially stop doing it and simplify it. And then if that becomes important in future, again, you can grow that kind of data model.
I presented the investment staff meeting there one in Ashdown recently, and we were talking to 150 odd investment staff about data and things like that. And even the CEO is saying times are hard at the moment, with everything private equity, it's tough to do the deals, the fundraising, et cetera. We've really got to push. And I'm trying to give them the options to improve it. This is the data needs to be there, the system, making more structure. So that's also what I'm trying to use as my argument. So, we've been told that we need to work harder and smarter and faster. This is how you can do it with these systems. It's, the technology that then brings in the technology part of this is what technology do we use and we can make a real difference. And if we don't, everyone else is going to be doing it. So we need to do this.
I think a couple of points on your data entry question. So one thing that we've done, which is really helpful, which we've integrated external data providers into our CRM system. So we now basically have reduced the amount of time it takes to add a deal from, this is really nerdy, but I did time it. It took us 2 minutes 30 previously. It now takes us, you can add a deal with one click, and then you have to change the information slightly. So it takes us about 30 seconds. So it doesn't sound like a huge time saving in terms of your day, but actually if you're adding 10, 15 companies or 10, 15 deals, that's actually quite a time saving. So that was really, 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 really helpful. I think also, to your point about some people engage with the system and others don't, I think that in a fund, it is natural that you're going to get people that are going to engage with the system more and others that engage with it less. I think what we found really helpful is just that encouraging those that use it. And, we have most of our team are really kind of good at using the system now, but we basically get to 100% of the data with the users that do use it. And then essentially we can sort of make sure that we're capturing everything. And everybody engages with the system to a certain extent because all of our catch-ups, as I said, are powered by it, etc. So whilst they may not be the best people at adding all the data all the time, they're still kind of receiving what's input. And we're getting every single deal that we should be getting added onto there. And so it's just kind of understanding what culture you've got in your business and working out how you can sort of work with that. And I think is the way to do it.
And the other thing, just generally around, so with CRM systems today, any person, the product owner or like management at a CRM company knows that data entry is the biggest problem. And a lot of people are really pushing to do that, whether it's against third parties, whether it's through like a Google Chrome add-in where you go to a company, it pulls up the data from SourceScrub and Preqin and PitchBook, and you just click add to CRM and it brings it in. Things like smart tagging, AI. So you pop in and you may copy your meeting notes. So you put in your meeting notes and it looks across and says, okay, well, this is the company. These are the 6 contacts that were mentioned based on the context. And you can just sort of like click, and then go. So the concept of data entry is a well-known issue in this space and something that I think every sort of CRM company really focused on trying to get to, like as a North Star, 0 data entry, or as minimal as possible using some of the more modern technology that's out there.
I think also this idea of the problem being behavioral, for anyone that has worked in other industries, it is quite interesting to compare the private capital industry's use of your CRM systems to other industries where it is kind of bread and butter of anyone that is ultimately using one. You guys potentially being a good example of that. I'm sure you use your own system and
drink our own champagne.
Yeah, exactly. I'm keeping an eye on the glasses and bottles and they're getting dangerously low, so we're going to move on.
Okay.
The final question, if you allow us to do some kind of blue sky thinking here. So thinking more about the kind of broader data strategies. So how does a CRM and its data fit into kind of a wider technology architecture? How can you use that data in the future? AI potentially being a part of that, data platforms and consolidated reporting across different foundational and secondary systems being a part of that. So yeah, where do we start?
Yeah, it's a very long journey. But no, I think the idea I've got in my mind, I'm trying to sell to the business and push forward, is that Deal Cloud is part of it. So you have data coming into Deal Cloud. Deal Cloud's the hub for deal data, everything that's related. But then you look at other data systems. So we've got Investrand for our fund admin and other things like that, and whatever other data sources we have. But feeding it into a central repository, looking at data lakes and looking at the reporting, what can we do with that? What data and what reports are useful? So I'm trying to look for times where I've got a deal guy phoning up the IR team saying, can you give me this data, all this data that's quite important to them. And every time the IR team have to go through, find out the data, why is that like that? Why shouldn't it just be a report so that we can see? It could be deal guys can just go on a report dashboard and just see there it is. That's the information I need. And that's, you need to get this, again, before we say it's a structured data, looking at everything structured, put it in the right place in the right order, then produce the reports. And also allowing the deal teams access to these data lakes. I think I was on a call the other day, someone mentioned, so I thought that's actually a really good idea. It's how can you we shouldn't have to control it all the time as the IT department. Why can't you just let the data lake, they can't change it. It's there. It's set data. You just allow them access to it and they can produce the report. There's guys coming out of university now who are far better at these things than I am, building reports and things like that and looking at the data. So off you go, do it. And that's, I think, my sort of the bigger picture of what I'm trying to look at, bringing the basically structured data in from Source Scrub, Capital IQ Pro, Game Pro, all of these, making use of these areas, making use of Deal Cloud as a central hub for the information. Everything goes into there. And then bringing in other bits of useful information, making use of our entire software estate, our inventory, what else can be used to give us the edge. And that's what it is in the end. It's giving us, IK partners, the edge against everyone else and to make the best deals. And that's what everyone's after. So that's how I see it in the future. Maybe a while away, but that's what I'm trying to aim for and trying to sell to this off.
It's interesting timing for that question. So we've just finished sort of end of last year building our own in-house deal origination software product. So essentially what we've built, we call it DOT, deal origination tool. We were not feeling very creative that day. But essentially what we've built is our own data warehouse, which houses data from sort of 4 or 5 of our most trusted data providers, essentially. So doing away with the problems that we had where we were having to search one platform, search our CRM system, see if we need a business, then download this list, stitch it with this list and kind of stitch everything together, which is just hugely inefficient. We've essentially put everything in one place. So you can search every different system in one place. You can sort of pull all of the relevant bits of data and the most accurate bits of data on different companies. You can see exactly what we think about it because it pulls our CRM data into it. You can sort of port to all of the different platforms, etc. And that's been really transformational in terms of efficiencies for us, kind of actually, just being quicker and better at our job. We're able to surface businesses, new sort of opportunities much more effectively. So that's been sort of a really transformational piece of work for us. And what we're really excited about now and sort of where we're thinking about going is now taking our own sort of proprietary data. So all of the assessments that we've made on businesses and everything that's been seen in our CRM and using that to help us get smarter about how we analyze companies. Like we have loads of really great assessment and sort of data on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies that we've been looking at over the last 4 or 5 years. How can we take that information and then, kind of run it over a load of companies and then say, okay, maybe you should prioritize these top 10 instead of spending your time going through this list of 100, for example. So we're really excited about how do we now sort of take this great system that we built and then apply sort of our own proprietary data over the top and sort of to the AI point earlier, sort of how can we build some AI into that as well? So I think kind of we're at a point where we're quite excited about what we can now do with this base system that we built. So we've got a lot of sort of plans and a lot of stuff that we're hoping to achieve over the next few years.
Okay, so the proprietary information is the important bit as well. That's really important because we've all got access to the same information. So if you've all got access to the same information, what differentiates you as a business from everyone else? And it's the proprietary, it's your people and not the data they put in, which again, data and getting it in there and getting it logged into a system. And that is going to be the differentiator between yourself and someone else to be a successful deal, successful fundraise or anything like that. So that is such a huge thing, I think, because it's great to have all this standard data, but it's the extra bit that you put in, the human bit at the top, that makes the difference for
it's a very competitive space, right? Like, Ruth, have you ever been in the situation where you were going head to head on a deal with someone that you knew and couldn't say anything about it?
Don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's competitive. People are going out there and fighting against their competitors. They're trying to go and win the deal and do a better deal and get to that business faster than the other one. So to Peter's point, I kind of visualize this as sort of a triangle. Like the bottom layer is group, right? It's the stuff that's publicly available. My daughter can go with that easy, right? The next layer is the pay to play layer. As long as you get past the paywall, you have the exact same information that everybody else has, right? But it's that top piece of the triangle. It's the proprietary data. That's the secret sauce. That's where your people are actually out there making things happen. That's where they have the relationships. And you can understand that this company, this person knows this board member, and this person, went to school with this CEO or whatever. That's when you can start to move a lot quicker. But you wouldn't have that if you don't have all those pieces together in one place. And then to your point, you throw an AI wrapper on that. You can start to summarize that data. You can start to interrogate that data. You can start taking what is data, because data in and of itself is worthless, right? But if you can turn that data into information or turn that information into actionable intelligence, then that's where you can really start playing at a much, much higher level.
I think that's what we were saying earlier as well. I think with the why should we do this? I think something that we often kind of use with senior stakeholders is, to use your example earlier, Peter, I make really good deals. They make loads of money. Why do I care about CRM? Yeah. So, well, if you look 5 years, 10 years into the future, and our competitors around us are all doing this, and they're building foundations for this good quality proprietary data to help us do that, or the secret sauce, as you said, what does that mean for us? And I think it's quite a good kind of line of questioning to get people thinking about what you're doing today and how that affects where you'll be in the future. You know what core AI tools you'll be able to point your data in future at. And if you're not kind of putting that proprietary data into your system today, it's very hard to go backwards and build that data, no matter how much resource you throw at it, to be honest with you. So you have to do it now to be able to leverage it.
Very much so. Okay. Conscious of time again. Any questions from the floor around wider data strategy, around proprietary data, bring them all together? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the ways that we used it is sort of built into everybody's annual appraisals. So the CRM data is there. So, X person has originated X number of deals, and kind of, seeing where they got to with those deals. So that's been really fundamental, because what, gets measured gets managed, right? So actually kind of having that's part of the structured appraisal process that we have has been really, really great. And everybody sees that, obviously there's a load of other benefits to using the system, of course, but actually just fundamentally, like once a year, you're going to be appraised on how much you have been doing in your role. And that is driven by this data that we're capturing here has been super, super helpful.
Okay.
Nothing much for me to say. I'm struggling on this one at the moment, so I'm getting how many tips.
I think one example I see quite often is from a knowledge management perspective. So I'm working with a big investment bank at the moment, actually, and they have this concept of blast emails, which is a kind of colloquial term for just sending an email to a huge amount of people saying, do we know someone at this firm, or have we looked at this before? And working with, actually, I think in Peter, with some of your team as well. Some of the junior members of the team are kind of trawling through a huge amount of SharePoint sites and documents to try and find if they looked at a deal before, but it's not in the CRM system. It should be empowering to them to be able to kind of find the route in immediately, find who was on that deal, for example, and then immediately go over to their desk or message them on Teams or something like that, and just remove that kind of manual effort in the interim. A success criteria of this project that I referenced is that blast emails don't exist anymore, which is quite a clear-cut success criteria.
And there's also an embarrassment factor, both from a personal perspective and a corporate perspective. It's when you call someone, you want to talk to them, and they go, "Oh, I talked to your colleague in the other office 2 weeks ago." And the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. You kind of look like a bit of an idiot, and your organization doesn't look very good. All right. So why would someone want to do a transaction with you if you don't even know what the person down the hall is doing? All right. So, I guess it's maybe go back to it's easier to get people, away from pain versus pushing them towards pleasure. Right. But, trade line into that. I think that embarrassment thing is definitely something. Once you get caught with it once, you never want to feel that again. So if you can get ahead of that and make sure they don't feel it in the first place, then that could be potentially good incentivization at a lower level. He's like really out there working the phones, emailing CEOs, emailing investors, and really pushing things out there.
I think another point, sorry, to add as well, is that we found that using the CRM system as well as we're using it has really empowered our more junior members of our team. So I think sort of if you are, a relatively new investment manager or someone who's not sort of a partner at a private equity fund, there is so much history and the partners have so much experience, and they have looked at deals and they've probably looked at the business that you're looking at a couple of years ago. And actually, one thing that I think sort of can be a bit intimidating is, you're looking at a new company, but you don't know the history of the business that your fund has, kind of can be quite difficult to access that sort of collective history. Whereas actually now that everything is recorded and we have sort of a proper record of everything, a junior investment manager or someone who's relatively new, has only been there for 6 months, a year, for example, they know, okay, we looked at this 2 years ago. I know the person in my organization I need to go talk to. And actually it really sort of opens up that sort of collective history for them in a certain way. And sort of it takes a bit of a barrier away from them in terms of, being able to talk and understand more about companies. So they've said, to us that actually they found it really empowering to be able to kind of log onto the system and then instantly kind of know where to go to get the answers, rather than sort of come up against this information wall.